What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? What is going on? It is your host, David, and I am back with another episode of the Top Bunk Sports Podcast. This is episode number 48, and I am very pleased to have a special person on this episode. This is Anthony from Subway To Shea. And how are you doing, bro? Thank you for being here, man. I know you got a busy schedule, so thank you for taking the time to be here. How are you doing, my guy?
David, anything for you, my friend. We've been trying to do this
Yes.
for over a year. Thankfully, I got you on my podcast. We got to do an episode that way.
Yep.
But we've been trying for so long. We had those tech difficulties the last time. And I'm so glad that we are doing this now. And I got to say, it was a pleasure meeting you out there at Citi Field this season. And I hope we get to do that a lot more as the 2024 season is upon us.
As long as I don't catch you during one of those home runs where I gotta hide from these fireworks. But that's a long story. That's a whole different story. All of a sudden now Steve Cohen wants to turn this into a circus. But that's a whole different story. A little back run on what happened last time for the audience that doesn't know. So we tried to do an interview our very first time, but my Wi-Fi wasn't on my side that day. And usually with the way I run my video interviews, I run it under a website called Riverdale, and whatever audio it picks up under clear internet or whatever, it'll give me. And then sometimes whatever audio or video gets messed up, it doesn't pick it up, so I don't have that locked in the storage where it saves it. It automatically saves it. So right now as we're recording, it's saving this while it's recording. So I told Anthony, I said, man, we got to get one back. And then what's funny is the Mets have been able to give us a lot of stuff to talk about while we've been trying to set this interview up. So we'll get into it. But the first thing that I want to ask you is, what was your recap of the 2023 Mets? Because obviously we know that it wasn't the expectation that we were hoping for. They underachieved, in my estimation. I mean, obviously with Justin Verlander being the number one guy that they signed after Jacob deGrom signed the 5-year deal with the Texas Rangers. He didn't turn out as well as we thought. Max Scherzer didn't turn out as well as we thought for his second year. So what was your recap on this season? And what was your expectations coming into the season before everything went down?
Well, at the very least, my expectations going into that season were that this team would at least be a playoff team. I knew they weren't winning 101 games. I did not, even with Justin Verlander, even with all the moves that they made, I thought that they were going to take a step back. Now they took a giant leap back, but I didn't think that they were going to win 101 games. I was saying somewhere between 92 to 95 wins I thought they were going to be able to do. They actually came with the losses. So that was very frustrating to see. Well, it was really close. 87 losses, right? Like no one expected that to happen. And it's because they had the highest payroll in all of baseball. And, for us fans, it's hard to, fathom because we've never seen it before. We've never seen our team spend this much money and have, the richest owner in baseball. I know the 92 team was, the worst team money could buy, and they had the highest payroll at that time. But since I started watching baseball around 1998, with under the Wilpons, they never really spent crazily. They never went beyond to get a certain player or to, finish a team. They were always like that one or two players behind to really take that next leap. And it felt like this time around with Steve Cohen going after Verlander, going after Kodai Senga, and him doing these moves, it felt like this team at least had the opportunity to make the playoffs. Now, they made no adjustments to the offense, right? They really brought nobody except bringing back Brandon Nimmo, giving Jeff McNeil an extension. No one was really brought in. We all know we needed a DH. They didn't do that. So we were stuck with Daniel Vogelbach, who didn't really do much for us. It was very disappointing most of the season. He got hot in August and a little bit in September. But by that time, it's too late. And, thankfully, we also had DJ Stewart, who started playing hot. Tommy Pham, who's in the World Series right now. You're repping that old school Arizona hat that I love so much. Yeah, man. It was very disappointing, and I wouldn't say it's the worst season that I've ever witnessed. I think it was very bad because we knew the season was over after that month of June, right? I think they went, I don't know if it was 9 and 19, or they had a bad month of June. It was like one of the worst months of June I remember, dating all the way back to that 2002 team where they had that really bad August and they won like I think 6 games.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was terrible. But yeah, the team disappointed. You mentioned Justin Verlander. I continue to go on record saying I never wanted Justin Verlander here. I thought he was too old to begin with. And it showed, right? He missed the first month of the season. He was hurt. He came back. He pitched okay. Then he started to pitch a lot better as the season went on. But by that time, too late, right? And Scherzer never really got going. He was okay, and then we're seeing in the playoffs, he was hurt. He barely played. He had that thing with the umpire where they caught him with the sticky substance, and the season, it felt like the season never really took off. And you can date that all the way back to Edwin Diaz getting hurt in the World Baseball Classic, right? And none of us wanted to believe it. I didn't believe it. I said, oh, David Robertson, he can handle the duties, which he did.
Which he
But
did.
the
Yeah,
bullpen was
yeah.
absolutely terrible. Probably one of the worst bullpens I've ever seen, with all these guys coming in, Trevor Gotts of the world, Dominic Leone. I'm still surprised that we got a trade out of Dominic Leone and for a pretty
He's a
decent
top 10
person in the
prospect at
minor league.
that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
hopefully that works out well. But the bullpen was frustrating. Brigham, Drew Smith, who
Drew
was supposed to
Smith,
take
oh,
another
that's the
step.
worst.
So
Yeah,
yeah, this
yeah.
season was super frustrating, and this team somehow cannot overcome themselves. Like they couldn't even finish, 500, or
Mhm.
even 82-80. The Yankees didn't make the playoffs, but somehow they always find a way to finish over 500. The Mets can't do that for some reason. Now we
Mhm.
had Jonathan Ruiz in there, who was playing in the outfield. I can't remember his name. Um,
It wasn't Rafael Ortega, right?
No,
No.
there you go, Ortega,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Forgettable
Yeah.
names that I
Yeah.
never thought would be here.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
kids didn't really take off except for Francisco Alvarez, right? Let's be honest.
Mhm.
Brett Beatty was not good this season. Who else? Mark Vientos wasn't really good this season. We got a little bit of Ronnie Mauricio, and we liked what we saw. I think that was the game that we met each other, that he hit his
Yeah.
first home
Yeah.
run, that
And he hit
that
it
absolute
literally.
rocket.
If I'm not mistaken, I think it was 5 minutes before I went to go see you. He hit it. The first thing we said to each other was, "Man, what about that bomb by Ronnie?" We didn't
No
even say
hello,
hi.
no
We didn't even
hello,
say hi.
nothing.
We literally said, "What about that bomb?" But again, that's something we expected out of him because
Yeah.
he was in spring training. All he did was rake. It was
Yep.
every at bat that he had. If it wasn't in the gap off the wall, it was a home run. So
But
we were waiting for that home run in City Field
oh
to see
yeah.
how, and he took advantage of it.
Yep.
He
And even with him, hitting a couple of home runs, you saw that at the end of September he kind of started to slow down a little bit. So really, Francisco Alvarez was really the one that shined out of most of them, and even he went through a lot of struggles. So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
going to be interesting to see how those guys are handled moving forward, whether they are a part of this team or not, because we don't know. They could be
Mhm,
trade bait or whatever. So we'll
mhm.
see what happens. But yeah, definitely overall, it was a very frustrating and very disappointing season. Very disappointing in that team.
Yeah, I think for me, and you put it very well. I think for me, it was something where again, I'm a season ticket holder. I just renewed, so it's my third year. So I think with me, I had a little bit of a different look at it because of the fact that you whether you want to talk about 2022 in September, how we kind of dropped the ball in the division. Regardless of how that ended, we still made I don't care what anybody says. I look at the wild card as a playoffs. Like I hear people always talk about, oh, I don't care, wild card. No, wild cards are playoffs to me because at the end of the day, you give an extra boost to teams that an extra leverage to get in. You know what I'm saying? So we made the playoffs right then and there. I would have thought that free agency would have been the Mets number one. You know what I'm saying? I would have thought that we would have been the San Diego Padres, where the Padres actually went and got key assets, even though they didn't perform to what they needed to perform. The Padres are another team that underachieved. but we didn't, like you said, we didn't really add much. We kind of kept the same regimen going. And then we just, we added Justin Verlander. Kodai Senga made his debut. Kodai Senga was the only limelight for me. I gotta
Yeah.
tip my hat to him at 100%. He's looking like the ace for opening day. If
Yeah.
they don't get a starting pitcher in here, he's looking like the opening day starter. And you know what? I can't even complain.
Look,
He's shown.
his first year in the major leagues, 12-7 with a 2.98 ERA. He could win the Rookie of the Year. He's not going to get the Cy Young because that's probably going
Mhm.
to go to Blake Snell. But
Yeah.
like, just think about what he's had to do to get here, the adjustments he had to make to be in the major leagues because it's different from ball in Japan,
Mhm.
and you know the way he pitched and taking to New York the way he did. He is so beloved right now, and that's great to see. Look, the entire season, we just said disappointment, but it
Mhm.
wasn't all bad, right?
No.
It wasn't all bad. Senga had a really good year. When we had David Robertson, he was pretty good for the time that he was here. Tommy Pham, and the best player, position player, Francisco Lindor. 31 home runs, 98 RBIs. He batted 254. He was batting, I want to say, around like 211, two
He
twelve,
was he was in that range right
right before.
before he picked it up.
Yep,
Yeah.
right before.
Yeah.
I think it was right before he had his daughter, and he
Yeah.
came
Yeah.
back.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And he came back, and he
Mhm.
was hot the rest of the season. He played
Mhm.
very well. Pete Alonso, 46 home runs, 118 RBIs. I'm a little bit disappointed in him because he's batting 217. Now, I know a lot of people don't care about average, but to me, that's still an important
Me too.
stat. It's
Ah,
still
yeah.
there. Like, I'm on
Yeah. No,
baseball
yeah, yeah.
reference right now. It's
100%.
still
Yeah.
there. So,
Mhm.
batting average still means something. And for me, what's disappointing is the guy was batting 270, 275 in 2022.
Mhm.
He looked like the second coming of Mike Piazza to me.
Mhm.
I grew up on
Mhm.
Mike Piazza, watched him play, hitting it in the gaps, hitting it opposite field, getting base hits. It was really home run or bust for Pete Alonso, right? There was no extra. There was barely any extra base hits. He had 21 doubles. Obviously, he's not going to get a lot of triples, but like a lot of it was either single or home run.
Home run.
And
Mhm.
with that power that you have, you got to be hitting more doubles. Like to be below Jeff McNeil with the power you have. Brandon Nimmo also, he had 30 doubles. Like I think with the power Pete has, he should be able to get a lot of doubles, but he didn't this season, and he struggled. The
It's
power
funny.
was there and the
Yeah.
RBIs were there, and that's cool. But we need a over how do I say it? An overall game from Pete, kind of like what we got from Francisco Lindor, and we know Pete can
Yeah.
do it because we've seen it before. So
Yeah.
that's the thing that's frustrating. And the other positive I'm going to throw out there, Brandon Nimmo. 24 home runs, the most he's had in his career, 68 RBIs. He batted 274. At some point, with Brandon Nimmo, I think that they need to move him down the order and get a legitimate
I agree.
leadoff guy. Like I know he can
I
get on
agree. Yeah.
base, but to me he's more of like maybe a 2 or a 3. Uh, you got to be able to steal bases, and to have 3 stolen bases in the leadoff spot after we had the Ricky Hendersons of the world leading off, Mookie
Yeah.
Wilson, Jose Reyes with the stolen base, Roger Cedeno. Like you got to be able to steal more bases. But those to me were the positives. Obviously, Francisco Alvarez, not just at the plate, but also behind the plate, the way he called games. I know he struggled throwing batters out, but that's because we have pitchers that can't hold batters on. Like you're not gonna get, no one's gonna get anyone out when Adam Ottavino's at the mound. So
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just a struggle
Yeah.
with those guys. But
Yeah.
besides that, there was a lot of injuries to this team and a lot of retreads, and they didn't make the proper moves and proper adjustments until the trade deadline, where they decided we're going to trade everyone off and bring in the prospects. But besides that, before I forget, Jose Quintana. I thought when he came back, he was a very solid pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up, I mean, and before I get into that, just for anybody that wants to go on the timeline and violate me, I'm not wearing an Arizona Diamondbacks hat because they're in the playoffs. I got it to match with the outfits, and it's a dope hat, like Anthony says. See, at least Anthony understands why I got it because it's a retro hat and it's dope. And I love hats. I wear hats all the time. But it's funny that you bring up Brandon Nimmo because I was one of those people that was very confused with Brandon Nimmo as far as what he was doing this year and his approach to the ball compared to what he was doing last year. Last year, he was somebody that was putting the ball in play, making contact in any way possible, and it was base hits all the time. What now? He added the uppercut to his swing, and it was basically home run or strikeout. And it was very odd to me because Brandon Nimmo's success as being a leadoff hitter was putting the ball in play and just reaching on base. It's for any leadoff hitter. That's what you're supposed to do, and that's what he was doing last year. And then this year, it was either home run or nothing. So it's funny that you bring that up because I was one of those guys critiquing Brandon Nimmo, like, yo, what's going on with him? Like, a lot of people were giving him shit because they were like, yo, ever since he got that contract, he's been very different. All he wants to do is hit bombs. And to a certain extent, I was one of those people that were like, you might be right. You know what I'm saying? So it's you bring Brandon Nimmo up, and I think a lot of people, they did give him a lot, but it is to be credited for because he was moving away from a lot of the techniques that he was displaying last year when all he did was find a way to get on base, whether it was walks, it was regular base hits, just going the other way. Jeff McNeil is the same way. Jeff McNeil was putting the ball in play and going the other way a lot last year. Now, Jeff McNeil was just forcing himself to hit and he was striking out a lot. So it was very odd to see this. It's funny that you bring that up. Another person that you just brought up right now, too, that I wanted to talk about was Jose Quintana. I mean, he to me was the how do you say it was the guy that nobody talks about when we talk about this team in the 2023 Mets because he was coming in here as a questionable guy when we signed him. I've heard positive things about him, and I was hearing negative things about him before the season started last year, and then he got the injury after spring training, after that one spring training start that kept him out up until June. And then he just comes in and he's every start that he had, I think it was only like two starts where he had a bad start. The rest of his starts
Yeah.
were solid starts. He was going almost 5-6 innings when none of our starters were giving us 5 innings to be. They were only giving us five. He was at least going 6.5. So a lot of the stuff that I saw from him. To me, if I was, if I was David Stearns and Billy Epler, sorry, Steve Cohen, I would consider bringing him back just because he was very solid for us last year. What's your thoughts on Jose Quintana?
Yeah, I think he still has one more year left on his deal. I
Yes,
think it was a 2-year
2 year
deal.
deal, 26
Um,
million.
so yeah, he
Mhm.
first off, it sucks that he got hurt in September, but thankfully he did. Otherwise, they probably would not have caught. I think he had like a tumor
Yeah,
at the
yeah,
time. So
yeah.
thank goodness they caught that early and in time, and he's okay now. But yeah, he as soon as he came back, I think it was right around the Subway Series
Hmm.
in Yankee Stadium. He was a solid pitcher throughout. I don't remember one terrible start that he had. Like we could talk all day about the bad starts that Carlos Carrasco had all season long.
Hmm.
I can't say that about Jose Quintana. And he was really expected to come in and be a number 4. He was expected to take over for Taiwan Walker when he went. And he did. I thought he did a great job. Obviously, they didn't score for him, so that's why he's 3-6. But the 3.57 ERA from a third or fourth guy in the rotation is something that's good. Also, I like what we saw from Joey Lucchesi,
Yes.
Jose Buto, and Tyler McGill to end the season. They needed that because we are going to need depth, especially at the end of that rotation. And it quite possibly, Tyler McGill, I said this during the summertime, I'm going to need to see him and David Peterson step up because at least one of those guys will probably be the fifth starter. And, I'm glad, Tyler McGill stepped up to the plate. I was at his last game that he pitched this season and he pitched very well.
Yeah, I'm just I've been vocal about David Peterson staying as a reliever. For
Agree.
ever since he became they put him in the reliever spot. I mean, for example, when Subway Series last year, when we walked the Yankees off with Starling Marte when he hit that base hit to walk them off. Remember, he gave up that 2-run homer to Gleyber Torres for them to tie it. We were up 2-0. And I remember a Met fan telling me this is why we should get him off the team. And I looked at him and I said, you know what? I don't like David Peterson at all, but you got to give the guy credit. Ever since Buck moved him into as a reliever, he's done nothing but collect strikeouts and get outs. He's been solid. He gives up 1 home run to Gleyber Torres, which Gleyber Torres had to go and get that. It wasn't like he left a meat hanger right there for Gleyber Torres in his wheelhouse. Gleyber Torres had to go get that. So that was a very located pitch that Gleyber Torres went and drove the other way. So, every time it's something with David Peterson, so where every time he becomes a starter, he can't find consistency. But every time he goes into the bullpen, he's money.
Yeah, and he every start that he got down the stretch, he only went 3 or 4 innings. I
Yes.
can't have that. You have to
Yeah.
at least go 5 innings. And he wasn't doing that. I do like you said, I like him in the bullpen, and I'm always in favor of multiple lefties in the bullpen. If you tell me Brooks Raley and David Peterson are the lefties coming out of the bullpen next year, I am ecstatic because that's what we need out of the
Mhm.
bullpen. 2 guys in that bullpen should be left-handed pitchers. And, we saw the team suffer for not having a
Lefty
second
pitcher.
lefty for now
Mhm.
2 years. And it's been frustrating, but if Brooks Raley and David Peterson are those guys in the bullpen, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I mean, it got to a point where after we traded David Robertson, which is a funny story. I don't know if you were at that Marlins game. Not, I don't think we were playing. I think we were playing the Nationals, but we were. I was at the game where Brooks Raley closed, and I remember everybody saying, "Where the hell's David Robertson?" Right when he closed, as I'm walking out the Delta Club that I'm always sitting at, I get the notification. You can hear everybody in the club go, "Oh!" Like it just popped up right then and there, like it just happened right there. And at that time, I wasn't calling it the season over just yet. I was like, if they get into a streak now, they could possibly be right behind the wild card or whatever. If you would have told me during that trade if we would have thrown in the towel, I would have told you no. But it's very funny that once Brooks Raley got put in that closing position, it was kind of like he was kind of waving the flag as far as like, yo, my back is hurting because I'm like the only lefty in this bullpen, basically doing my job, and he was solid. There was nothing to complain about with Brooks Raley. I love the kid, and it's to what you were saying. Yeah, it's hopefully if they do keep David Peterson in the bullpen, I would love it because he hasn't shown me anything negative as far as him being a reliever. Now as a starter, yeah, I don't like him. He scares me. It's the same thing with McGill. I don't want nothing to do with Tyler McGill as a starter. You call me crazy. I have no faith in the dude. Um, I give him credit for holding it down when Jacob deGrom last year couldn't pitch for opening day. He was very solid, very strong, but it kind of diminished after he got that injury. So it was very, very telling. But the one thing that I wanted to switch up on, still on the Mets, is David Stearns and Billy Epler stepping away right after David Stearns. They officially announced him. It was very funny. It was very funny. There was a lot of jokes being cracked about Billy Epler stepping down as soon as David Stearns came in. What is your? I saw a video that you posted today. It was an Instagram short, basically saying Mike Puma put out an article about him and his wife having a little bit of an interest coming here and stuff like that. What is your overall opinion with David Stearns? What do you think he can provide for the club, and ultimately, what do you think he'll do as far as him being an aggressor coming into this free agency?
So the short about that was Craig on Craig Counsell about
Craig
Craig
Counsell, sorry,
Counsell
sorry,
um possibly coming here, right? Because
but he has a connection with Stearns, like
yeah,
him.
he does
Yeah.
have that connection with
Mhm.
Stearns, which is why everyone thinks he's going to come here. I'm a little bit 50-50 on it. I'm not
Okay.
sure if he will or won't come here. I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't
If he doesn't,
because
okay.
he's so, like I said in the short, he's so ingrained in Milwaukee itself, not just the team, but
Mhm.
like his kids go to school around the area. He's been living there his whole life, so
Mhm.
I wouldn't be shocked if he stayed there. I wouldn't be shocked if he goes to Cleveland, who also talked to him. I don't know if it was today or yesterday.
I think it was yesterday.
But
Yeah.
he's got a couple of options. The one thing is, like I said, his wife and him like New York, which is good. You want them to like New York,
Yeah.
otherwise it's not
Yeah.
going to be fun.
Yeah.
Steve Cohen has the money to make him the highest paid manager in baseball, and like we're going to talk about now, David Stearns and him have the relationship from Milwaukee. And I'm excited that we got David Stearns, because the whole time that Steve Cohen has been here, we've been in search for this president of baseball operations, and we've seen that it's not been easy. A lot of teams wouldn't allow us to talk to any of their executives, especially Milwaukee, who I feel like they definitely don't like Steve Cohen. But I think the writings were on the wall around, what was it, August, when it was announced that he was allowed to talk to other teams. So as soon as that happened, kind of got the feeling that David Stearns would be coming here.
Mhm.
Very excited for the hire. Very excited to see what he's going to do and what he can do with this team, since he's helped Milwaukee be a consistent winner, and that's what Steve wants. Steve wants to build this consistent winner. So you bring in someone who has done that in another place, and in a place that is I don't want to say a cheaper market, but they're not going to spend crazily out there. So
Yeah.
David Stearns is going to be interesting to watch what he does this offseason, right? He's going to have to do one big move, right? Like I feel like every time a general manager comes in here, because this is the first time we've ever had a president of baseball operation in team
Mhm.
history, right? We've
Mhm.
had
Mhm.
team presidents, we have GMs, but every time like a GM comes in here, he always makes that one first big move, right? Like Brody Van Wagenen came in here. He gets us Edwin Diaz.
And
Omar
Robert
Minaya
Nicolai.
brings us Beltran, Pedro
Mhm.
Martinez. I don't remember. What was it? Jared Porter got us Francisco Lindor.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
every time a general manager has to make the big move. I don't know what Stern's big move is, if it's Yamamoto or another starting pitcher, or if it's a trade. So we'll see what happens with that. So I'm very excited for Stearns, and I'm kind of glad that Billy Epler is gone. And if you're going to get rid of Buck Showalter, I feel like you got to start everything fresh and clean. Let David Stearns pick his general manager. Let David Stearns pick his manager, because if we've seen in the Mets history, that never works out correctly, right?
No.
The
No. Yeah.
new
Yeah.
hire has to inherit this guy, and then it's just like a puzzle of trying to put these teams together. So I'm happy for David Stearns, and I'm okay with them not retaining Billy Epler, because he really did lose me 2 seasons ago during that trade deadline. That was a big problem for me. The offseason this year, I thought he struggled at building a bullpen. Like the little things that he could do, he did not take care of for
Yeah.
2 seasons. Right?
Yeah.
He needed to fix the bullpen, needed bench pieces that could hit, and he did none of those things.
Oh. Mhm.
Signing
Yeah.
Brandon Nimmo, that's easy.
Yeah.
Signing Justin
Yeah.
Verlander, that's easy,
That's
because
easy.
Steve Cohen's going to give you the money.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
besides
Yeah.
that, I wasn't a big fan. Glad that they were able to make the moves that they did at the trade deadline and get some top prospects. Maybe that's somewhere where we can see Billy Epler succeed, but we still don't know if these kids are going to make it or not.
Mhm.
We're still searching for if Brett Beatty's going to be good. And if
Yeah.
Mark Vientos, we could get anything out of Mark Vientos. And, there's the jury's still out on Ronnie Mauricio. So we'll see what happens. But even this thing that happened where he had to step down because he wasn't using the IL correctly, like using the Phantom IL. Like those things. I mean, like, what are we gonna do? Like it only adds to the LOL Mets that we don't need. So
Yeah. Yeah.
thanks Billy Epler for I guess I don't want to say nothing, but not much. So
No. Yeah.
I'm good with them cleaning house in that aspect.
You're absolutely right. I again wasn't a fan of his. I mean, if you walk around City Field and you talk to the fan base, none of them were. So it's like every time I go, I would, you would hear on a random, like I'd be going to get food. All you hear is "fuck Billy Epler." Like it just pops up. So no, but nobody was a fan of his. However, the only piece, and again, you might credit this, or anybody else might credit this to Steve Cohen. The only thing that I give him like I tip my cap to him was how he was able to turn Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer into top prospects. And a lot of people I've had arguments with on Spaces that have told me, well, they're Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer. No, you don't get it. Two guys that are not in their prime anymore, that are not who they used to be, who can get hurt and can be shut out just like that on bad contracts, and you get top prospects for that. It's not easy to do. So the fact that Houston was able, mind you, Houston's a very smart organization. We've seen it before. So the fact that they kind of took Justin Verlander back, thinking that he was going to be who he was before he signed with the Mets, and they gave up, Drew Gilbert and I forgot the other one's name. I keep forgetting his name. But
Ryan Clifford.
yeah, two of their their top five prospects. And to get that for Justin Verlander, who's on a bad contract and who's already 40 years old, that to me, I have to give him credit for that. Especially also with Max Scherzer, we got Acuna's brother. Now I've heard some so things about Acuna's brother, how he's small, he's not as big as people think he is. That it plays out as time goes. But still, the fact that he was the Rangers' number one prospect and they gave him up for Max Scherzer, and Max Scherzer's not even working on, he's not working well for them. I got to give him credit on that. But I wanted him gone a long time ago. Another person that I did want gone that I was like, I think it's time to go young was Buck. What are your thoughts on his 2-year tenure with the Mets now that he's gone?
Yeah, I was more of a Buck supporter.
Okay.
I thought that now this was before we found out about David Stearns.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was unfair to let him go after them winning 101 games and
Mm-hmm.
then them having one bad year, because if you set that precedent, then every time some manager has a bad year, are you going to fire them? Like
Yeah.
you can't do that every season. But once David Stearns came, I was fine with them replacing him and going their own way and doing their own thing, him finding the manager that he wants. That was perfectly fine to me. His tenure here is incomplete, right?
Okay.
They
Mm-hmm.
went to the playoffs. They had the first 101 win season or 100 game win season since 1988.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking
Yeah.
about, we had that great 99 team, the World Series 2000 team,
Mm-hmm.
that 2006 team, which to me is still the best team that never made it to a World Series, and then the 2015 kind of like miracle run that they had.
And they
Like,
only won 90 games. Keep that in mind. They won
right.
90 games and they lost 72 games and still took the division. So then that team didn't even get 100 wins at all. So yeah,
No,
it tells
and
you.
just seeing Buck able to get this team to 101 wins, I thought
Mhm,
was a great feat. But they fell apart at the end of the season.
mhm,
He was never able to get these guys. I don't want to say motivated because I don't know what motivates these guys, but he was
mhm,
never able to turn the table
mhm,
on what happened at the end of the 2022 season when they fell apart against the Braves and when they lost to the Padres in the postseason. You would think that would like fire a team up and get
mhm,
them even nothing.
mhm.
Nothing happened. And everything that he did right in 2022 was wrong this year. Like
Yeah.
they weren't
Mhm,
making smart base running decisions, smart defensive, the pitching. Like there was nothing that he could do, obviously with the bullpen because it was poorly constructed by Billy Epler. But
mhm,
you know, these pitchers weren't going past 5 innings at the beginning of the season, which killed the team. Right, like that first month of April, the bullpen was pretty good. And I
mhm,
said, if these guys don't pitch more than 5 innings, this bullpen's going to be dead by next month. And it was done for the rest of the season. Like we
mhm,
saw them, they were awful outside of David Robertson and Brooks Raley. Even Adam Ottavino was okay, right? Like you look at his ERA and you take that any day of the week in the bullpen. But
Yeah.
he gave up some big time home runs and some
Yeah.
big losses. So that's where he struggled there. But yeah, Buck is a little bit incomplete for me. Um, he served the purpose in 2022 of changing the culture, which was
Big.
awful. Yeah, I mean, we're talking right, like Luis Rojas, all the stuff that happened with the general managers. You talk about Marcus Stroman, you talk about losing Conforto and Syndergaard and all those guys, Javi Baez, right,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the attitude that he had coming here, and they completely wiped that away. And Buck made them an actual team in 2022, and it
hmm
just felt like I felt like I saw something a total 180
yeah.
from what we were watching, and that's where Buck is going to get a lot of the fault there.
I personally, I think you can attest to this. There was something about that 2022 team, just from, again, you talk about from them getting hot in opening day. I was there
Hmm.
opening day. They destroyed the Diamondbacks. You talk about old timers day. I was there for that when they retired Keith.
Yep,
I mean,
me
that
too.
game for Keith's retire. You talk about us being down to the Marlins. We tied it, and then Brandon Nimmo walking it off on that era. And first of all, the crowd was packed for that. I mean, unless it's playoffs, the cheap seats don't get packed out like that. So the
Yeah,
fact that Keith Hernandez retirement day was able to fill out that much, and I remember when we walked it off, everybody, like, I have the video when I recorded that at bat, everybody jumped up, and it gave me goosebumps because again, we were winning so many games. I mean,
yeah,
you want to go back to when we first played the Braves, when we took 4 out of 5 from them.
yeah.
Um,
The Philly comeback
the Philly
twice, right?
comeback, yeah,
Both in
Mark
Philly.
Hanna, yeah,
The
like
Marcana game, and then the game they came back in the ninth,
yeah,
down
every
like
like
7 runs
there's little things. I mean, and I put the cherry on top with the Jake when he came back, his first return
against the
to
Braves.
City against the Braves, when they had simple man play like that. And you also talk about Brandon Nimmo robbing Justin Turner of a home like that. Like, a funny story about that. I had people looking at me on the train, weird, because I'm on my way from home from work, and I'm watching it on my phone. And when he does it, all I did was this. I went like that, but I yelled out. I was like, "Yeah, like that!" in front of people. The train was packed, but when it happened, you kind of get that because you never see Brandon Nimmo show emotion. So when he made the catch and he's showing emotion, like he's going, like, you could tell it was just a different type of vibe. You didn't really get that this year, and I think Buck played had a hand in that because coming there, like you said, he changed the culture, he changed the environment, and I think it was because he's also so well respected. There's a lot of things that he did when he was with Baltimore. I mean, even when he was back then, when he was with the Yankees, when he was with the Diamond, like a lot of things that he did as a manager in his history. Coming here, he had there. We were able to trust, and we had a coach we were able to trust based on his history and his past. Because even though he's never won a World Series, he's had winning years. So we were able to trust that, and you kind of saw that up until September of 2022, and then this year it was just nowhere to be found. And a lot of people kind of played that into, oh, maybe he's lost a locker room and stuff like that. And like you said, we don't know what motivates these guys. So there's no telling what Buck was able to do or what he wasn't able to do. But a lot of that, at some point when you're in his position, you're also thinking, damn, like, what can I do? How can I get these guys fired up? There's really nothing else I can do. So I agree with you when you say that. He definitely will be missed, though. I will tell you that, because there was a lot of good moments with him. Um, I know we spoke about Craig Counsell possibly being his replacement if they do get him. If they don't get him, who do you think in your mind could be another replacement if, let's say, Counsell does stay in Milwaukee or he does go to Cleveland?
This answer is gonna suck. I honestly, I really don't know because we
Okay.
haven't heard anything.
Mhm.
We don't know anyone else they're talking to. It feels like it's Counsell or bust, right? I mean,
Mhm.
all the talk has been about Craig Counsell. In that time, like I feel like they could have interviewed maybe one or two other candidates, but
Mhm.
maybe they have, and they're just keeping it tight-lipped. But we have not heard a single thing about the Mets since Billy Epler resigned. Obviously, we got the call to talk to Counsell, but if they don't sign him, I don't know. Like, do you reach out to Joe Espada? Like, we've done the interviewing of Joe Espada. What changes now that
Yeah.
makes him the manager now? And
Mhm.
he might become the Houston Astros manager. And
Yeah.
what makes us
Yeah.
think that Houston won't reach out to Craig Counsell?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The
No,
only manager I
I
didn't
agree.
want was Bob Melvin. I think that guy is so overrated. I don't know why everyone goes after him. I feel like he's just another, I don't want to say Art Howe. He's probably a step above that. But
Mhm.
what has Bob Melvin done that he gets all these opportunities? He failed, and no one's talking about it because, we got to talk about the Mets and how they failed. But Bob Melvin failed with this Padres team that was supposed to be destined to, make a World Series run.
World
They didn't even
Series.
make the playoffs
Yeah.
this year either.
Mhm.
So,
I
that's
agree.
the one guy I didn't want, and I'm glad that he's, go to San Francisco. Fine.
Yeah.
He's
San
gonna he's
Francisco
gonna be on
could deal.
every
Yeah.
California team by every West Coast team he's been a part of. I feel like
Yeah.
already, right? He's been
Yeah.
in Oakland, he's
Oakland
been in
and then
Arizona,
uh-huh.
he's been in now he's gonna go to San Francisco. He's been to
Then
San
with San
Diego.
Diego. Mhm.
Was he the Colorado manager?
I don't. He could have been, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah,
I gotta look at that.
I
But
don't know about that one yet.
what's funny is you bring that up. When he was with Arizona, they weren't even winning either. Mind you, every time he's been in a team, they've never really won anything
No,
significant. So I see Met
and
fans on my timeline
Arizona.
say that. Like I see Met fans on my timeline talk about, yo, we should get Buck. What has he done? If I gotta go through another year of Buck, I'd rather do that with a guy that's actually proven to kind of do something. Bob Melvin really hasn't taken a team anywhere. Like there
His
hasn't.
best time was in Oakland. And that was a time where obviously the Angels weren't good, right?
Mhm.
Seattle was terrible for
You're
like the
sucking.
past
Yeah.
decade. Besides these last couple of years,
Mhm.
that team has been terrible. And
Mhm.
Houston was just starting to put their squad together.
Yeah.
And then he leaves, right? Then he
Yeah.
leaves and he jumps to another team. Like,
Yeah.
no Bob Melvin.
Yeah.
Go stay in San Francisco. But besides, I don't know who they're going to reach out to. I know our buddy Keith from
Mhm.
Shea and Sons had
Shout out to my
mentioned Mike
guy.
Schilt.
Mhm.
That's a guy.
That's a great pickup. I'm gonna tell you why, because he was. I think people kind of sleep on what he did with St. Louis,
He got
and
wronged in St. Louis.
I think he was dealt. He wasn't dealt a fair game with Kansas City. Like what I'm saying is, you got guys like Bobby Witt Jr. They're trying to build, but it's like for a guy that was playoff with the St. Louis Cardinals, they let him go. Then obviously he's gonna accept a job with Kansas City. Why not? You know what I'm saying? Like he still wants to coach. But if I'm the Kansas City Royals, I'm gonna try to. I got my young star and Bobby Witt Jr. Can I add pieces around that to see if we can at least make a wild card? Because he's basically wasting all his talents in Kansas City, and they're nowhere. They're not even trying to compete right now. They got what, a 2-year window before they start competing, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I
Like,
think
you
that
know,
I think that they won their World Series. They had that little run
and then
2014,
they, yeah,
2015, and they're like, you know what? That's good for the next 20 years. I think we're fine now.
their
We'll just
their
keep
their
getting
main thing was
prospects.
beat the Mets. They're like, wait a minute, we gotta play the Mets. Hold up. Which, listen, I hate the Royals to this day because of that, but they outplayed us. I cannot even listen. I cannot even complain. The way they were playing small ball compared to us, they
I was scared of
listen.
that lineup.
Oh, I
Every
was too.
night, I was scared
I
of
was
that
too.
lineup. We're
I
talking
was.
about the Kansas City freaking Royals. I was
Yeah.
scared of that lineup.
Yeah, yeah. Especially fucking Eric Hosmer. For some reason, Eric Hosmer found a way to just break against us.
Yep.
It was so bad. But especially because the main guys that were killing for us in Cespedes and Daniel Murphy were nowhere to be found in the World Series. But it's one of those LOL Mets things that we're trying to get away from.
Soon,
Um
man. Soon.
yeah. Another thing that I wanted to touch on, just a couple more things before we wrap it up. How do you think well, I know we spoke about it, but how do you think Kodai Senga is gonna like fit in within the rotation in 2024? Like I said, I think if they don't add maybe a Blake Snell, even though I don't want this guy, if they don't add a Tyler Glass now, because I've heard rumors about them possibly looking into Glass now.
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't
want
want
Glass
him
now.
because he's an injury prone waiting to happen. But I've heard the rumors. Um, if they don't add another ace, like an ace, which I think they will, But if they get a Yamamoto and they don't add an ace, I think Kodai Senga could be the ace of this team. I think he's proven it, even though it's his second year. How do you think he fits, taking that leap of faith and going on to, grabbing the key for the rotation?
Well, we're looking at a guy, right, that last season that the concern was how many innings can he pitch? How many
Hmm.
pitches can he because right, he only pitched once a week in
Hmm.
Japan.
Hmm.
Now he comes here and obviously he's pitching a whole lot more than he did in Japan. Pitching more innings, throwing more strikes, and now you're asking him to be the ace, which I'm okay with. But now guess what? He's going to pitch more innings. He's going to
Yeah.
throw more pitches. He's going
Yeah.
to
Uh-huh.
face the best of the best starting pitchers in each rotation.
Yep.
So he has to duplicate exactly what he did last season to now do that again in 2024, and
Mhm.
it's hard to do that. Obviously he could be better, and he's already proven he could pitch in New York, so I have no problem with that. But I do think that they should get at least one more pitcher to be in front of him.
Mhm.
Like I don't want, like, he can be the ace, but I don't want him to be the ace. I
Okay.
want him to feel comfortable.
That's
Bring
respectable.
in
Yeah.
a Yamamoto. Maybe that's something that works for him,
Mhm.
with both of them being from Japan and all. That would be a good guy to bring in there for him. But there's other pitchers out there as well. I don't know how big I am on Blake Snell. Like I worry about him a lot. Coming off of the Cy Young, he's going to get a lot of money. Obviously, was it Julio Arias is probably, I don't even think he's going to be pitching
I
anymore
listen.
after
I
what
I
he
was
did.
trying. I was trying to tell people in spaces, bro, get away from
Yeah,
him as much as you can. There were things that I was hearing, and again, I don't work for the MLB. Even though that would be great, but I've heard things that when it came to him in the locker room with the Dodgers, it was bad.
yeah.
So
No, we don't need that.
and then you had this stuff with domestic violence that was basically the cherry on the top to kind of get him out of here. And it was just like, look, a lot of Met fans, y'all wanted him. I don't
Yeah,
see him now. Like,
yeah,
I didn't want him. And I'll tell you one thing. I see what you mean with the Blake Snell situation, but to be honest with you, we really don't have a legit like
yeah.
heavy
There's
left.
not that many options either. So
Yeah.
one at least one of these guys, whether it's Yamamoto, whether it's Snell, you can throw Aaron Nola in there. I feel like Aaron Nola is a lesser, like he's going to go right behind a Kodai Senga. But,
Uh,
Aaron Nola does have a good repertoire of pitches.
mhm.
And, this team needs what? At least two or three starting pitchers. Now, people can get upset about this all they want. And
Uh-huh.
Tyler McGill, David Peterson, Joey Lucchesi and Jose Budo are going to figure into this team, whether it's as a part of the bullpen
Mhm.
or as depth in this rotation. And one of them might be the fifth starter, whether it's Joey Lucchesi or Tyler McGill.
Mhm.
So if they decide that they don't want to, spend crazily, like they did last season, then we might just get a Yamamoto and one other pitcher, maybe via trade, or maybe
Okay.
they do bring in a Nola or someone of a lesser extent, I'm not saying it's this guy, but like a Sonny Gray or Lucas Giolito type, like one of those lesser pitchers.
Or you can give me Jordan Montgomery
That's
or
who I want.
Nathan Eovaldi. I'll take Nathan Eovaldi all day. Listen, if they're look, people I've been seeing it during the playoffs. A lot of people have said that they get scared with a Jordan Montgomery because he really wasn't solid for the St. Louis Cardinals and he really wasn't all that for the Yankees. My guy seems like he's found his stride.
I mean,
So and
I
Nate,
thought he was pretty good in St. Louis. They just had a bad team, but he pitched better than he did
I
when
thought
he
he
was
was
with the
okay.
Yankees,
Yeah,
and
no,
now he
much better
really
than
took
Yankees.
off with
Yeah, yeah,
Texas.
yeah. Which is why I'm like, I feel like they might re-sign him. Um, Nathan Eovaldi, to me, if that was their first signing going into free agency for the Mets, I would not be upset. I mean, you're addressing your starting pitching issue. Obviously, there's more to add, but that's a big hit for me because he's proven to pitch in pressure. I mean, he was with Boston. Boston is a big time market. So he's proven to have success in a big time market. I think he'll do well here. Um, I think that's a key piece that nobody's really talking about. Like I said, Jordan Montgomery is also another one. Um, and let's also not forget the number one key here that's not going to be pitching until 2025, but Shohei Ohtani, who I think, and I'm not saying this because of a fan perspective, I'm saying this because I don't think the Los Angeles Dodgers will outbid Steve Cohen for I think we got Ohtani in the bag.
You think so?
I think so because when I look at, again, a lot of owners do this, but for him to go make certain trips to Japan to go watch Otani, because he hasn't done it just one time. A lot of people forget that he did it during the World Baseball Classic, but he was doing it more often as well to go see Otani as well. Otani as well.
You sure
And
he
even,
wasn't just watching Yamamoto pitch?
I mean, that too, that could have played a factor into it as well. But I do think that that's been his number one guy, for a long
Mhm.
time. For a long time, I think he's been on his radar. And again, for somebody to go out there and be like, I don't care about the tax, because we all know how ridiculous the tax is.
Well,
I
look at what
think.
happened when, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but
Oh, no, you're
look at
good.
what
You're good.
happened when the Angels came here in August and the fanfare that Otani got just on his
Yeah.
own. You
Uh huh.
don't, Steve Cohen had to have been watching that. And obviously he's not going to be pitching. I want him more for his bat than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you throw him in the DH role or you throw him in the outfield, however you want to play him, and just get that bat in the lineup to protect Pete Alonso, who is,
Yeah.
unprotected right now. And that's a
Yeah.
reason why I think that Pete Alonso hasn't gotten a contract extension, because we know he's going to get a lot of money, but they want to see first if they can, spend on Otani first. Like that, I feel
Yeah.
like if they don't get Otani, I think that Pete then gets his contract extension. And maybe they both happen, but I think they desperately wanted to see first how much Otani was going to get.
Yeah. I think, if I believe he'll get around the 600. Call me crazy, but you know,
I wouldn't be
with
shocked.
a
Not in
two-way
baseball.
player, a two-way player. You're talking about our only two-way player, right? Number one. Number two, MLB has no cap space, so you're going up as much as you want. That's number two. Then number three, he's revenued around everything. When you talk about, I mean, when they're promoting Apple TV, he's on the front of their fucking their ad thing. So the guy is a winning market regardless. I mean, you just said it. When he was here in City Field, it was that third base dugout. That whole row was full of just Asian fans left there. I think I went to the second. It was second or first game, and I'm sitting in the club and I look to I'm like, yo, what's that? They're chanting Otani pretty loud. And I step out because I'm talking to the guy that checked the security that checks my ticket. And I just look and I'm like, dude, that's he's telling me, he's like, those are all Asian fans, whether they came from Anaheim, whether they live here, but they're fans of Otani. They were all decked out in Angel Otani jerseys left and right. That, and again, that it shows, it's just funny because they were celebrating Japanese Heritage Night, that serious. So it's just like everything
Hmm.
as far as like marketing and how they put that together. I think it also just shows that he's very Steve Cohen is very invested in trying to get this guy here. Obviously he's going to have the Dodgers and certain other teams. I also think the Mariners are going to be a team going in for him as well. People don't tend to agree with me,
No,
but they
I
are
agree with
very
that.
big. They are very big with the Japanese baseball market. I mean, goes all the way to Suzuki. Um, and if you look at what their cap space, what they have the money to get them. Like they have the money to go ahead and get them if they want to. So I think that's another team that's going to be looking out for him as well. Another player that I think the Mets could put their name in that hat is Juan Soto. What do you think about that? Juan Soto possibly. I think they could get him. I think he wants to be here. But what do you think? How that Juan Soto situation plays out for the Mets?
Um, I don't see an off-season trade for Juan
Hmm.
Soto. I don't know. Like, yeah, I really don't know how this plays out, because I just don't know what David Stearns is about yet.
Okay.
You know, at least with Billy Epler, we can kind of know, yeah, we're not gonna trade all the prospects away for Juan Soto because we know how Billy Epler rolled. But I don't know what David Stearns is like. I don't know if Pete Alonso is going to get a contract extension. I want him
Mhm.
to, but I don't know if David Stearns wants him here. If he fits what David Stearns is trying to do here with the Mets, he might
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
They think he might not. So we'll see when that comes around for Alonso. But yeah, with Soto, it would be obviously anyone's going to take him. Like no one would say no to taking Juan Soto, especially seeing him hit bombs into right field. Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
We've seen it, right? Like we've
Yeah.
seen what he
Yeah.
could do
Yeah.
at City Field, and he's definitely a guy that I would like to have on this. Same thing with Otani. You want that protection for Pete Alonso, and if they can get it, they're going to get. It's going to be one or the other. Like
Yeah.
if you think if you're going to get Otani, you can take your name out of the hat for Soto because
Yeah.
that's not happening,
Yeah.
or vice versa. So
Yeah.
that's to the extent that I feel like 100% on is like if they get one of these guys, they're not getting the other. So you know it's one or the other. But it would be nice to have a Soto on this team and playing in the outfield with. You know, Tommy Pham was running around in the outfield last season. Jeff
Yeah. Yeah.
McNeil was playing center field
Yeah.
a couple of games, and DJ Stewart and no more Ortegas, you know, no more Ruizes. It's time for this team to get serious, you know, around the lineup.
Yeah. Um, three more that I wanted to ask you.
Yeah,
Though the
sure.
first one, obviously, it was the Pete Alonso contract extension. Now, I obviously feel like they will extend him. But like you said, you think that it could be before or after the Otani sweepstakes, which kind of makes sense because it's like you want to see how this plays out. But I think they will extend him. Do you think they will extend him? And if they don't, what do you think? How do you think that out? You know, how do you think that fits for him, and how do you think that plays in with his mindset? Because you know, when you're a player, you with social media and everything, you gotta be seeing the talks that comes out. So I'm sure he's looking at it and he's like, and you know what I wonder what they're gonna do with me as far as you know, are they gonna extend me? Am I gonna have to play this year without getting an extension? Like, how do you think it's gonna play out for Pete?
Well, let's say that they don't extend him. Let's get that out of the way first, right?
Mhm,
If they
mhm.
don't extend him, you have to trade him. Like you have
Okay.
to get something back for Pete Alonso. He
Yeah.
cannot be allowed to just hit free agency and you
Yeah.
get nothing in return. They have to
Mhm,
trade him. Excuse me.
mhm. Yeah.
With him signing, like if they can get that done,
Mhm,
the whole thing is building around him. Like a lot of people were talking about trade Alonso, let him go, but like for this team to win, you need to build around Pete Alonso and Francisco Lindor and Nimmo. You got to build around those guys. Get him protection. Get him like we talked about Soto or Tani. Like you got to get, even if you get someone of elect. All I asked for last season was JD Martinez. Was that really hard to do? It seemed like that was an impossible
I'm
task.
laughing because I remember you telling me.
How impossible of a task that came out to be, and we stuck with Daniel Vogelback. Like,
Worst part
but
about it is that the Dodgers got him for cheap. They only spent $10 million on a 1 year deal to pick him up.
he was so good.
Yeah,
Like he
yeah,
was really good. But
yes. Yeah.
I don't want to go back too much into the
No,
past.
no,
But
no.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
if you sign that Pete extension, and if they're going to do it, I would take it down to that Francisco Lindor signing his extension right
Mhm,
before the season starts, because
mhm,
we know that they're not going to do anything in season, right? Like all the players do this now. We're like, if you don't sign me now, it's going to be at the end of the season, and
mhm.
every player is going to do this now. And I have a fear that Pete Alonso is going to pull an Aaron Judge and be absolutely amazing. Like
I,
he's going to have that 275, 50 something home runs, 100 and 40 something
mhm.
RBIs. And once that happens, you have now driven the price extremely high on him. And the Yankees almost lost him to San
San
Francisco, right?
Francisco. He's
San
from there.
Francisco and
Yeah,
San Diego, didn't they outbid the
they
Yankees? And he said,
the
I'm going to stay in New York.
the if I am not mistaken, the Yankees gave Aaron Judge 360, wasn't it? It was 360, right? If
Somewhere
I'm
around there, yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, the San Francisco Giants offered him 350, right? And that they were the first team to offer him something. The Yankees still hadn't offered him anything. They didn't know what the Yankees were gonna do. Then when the winter meetings came, the San Diego Padres gave him 10 years, 400 million. So at that point, I was like, oh, he's definitely going to San Diego. Like there's no you. He's from San Fran, and he didn't take that offer. So the fact that San Diego they were willing to give him 400, I said, oh, he's definitely going there. And then came out like 2 weeks later, the Yankees gave him their offer, but then here was the little tree, the little, how do you say it? Like the golden ticket dangling with the captain thing. So I was like, oh, that kind of makes sense why he went
Well,
back. Like they,
and it's the Yankees too, right? Like let's
yeah,
they have that aura about them. Like
yeah,
I want to be a Yankee. I don't
yeah,
as much as I love the Mets and both of us are probably some of the biggest Met fans out there.
yep,
The Mets don't have that aura where it's like, man, I want to play for the Mets, right?
mm-hmm,
Like they don't have
mm-hmm,
that yet. They
mm-hmm,
could be getting there, but they don't have that just yet.
mm-hmm.
So, Pete could possibly be gone,
Yeah, yeah,
and his price, it won't be Aaron Judge. He's not going to get, that crazy amount of money, but he's going to get himself in the 200s for sure, right?
yeah,
Like we can agree
yeah, yeah,
somewhere in the
yeah. I
200s he'll be
I say
getting.
I say probably, call me crazy, I say from 260 to 280. I don't see
I
him
think
giving
that's,
him the 300 because of his. I mean, home runs are home runs. He's
oh,
a
he
home
plays
run.
first base,
But exactly, but the average, I'm one of those people just like you who cares about average. So when I look at his average and I know that he can hit these home runs and still get that average up, and he only hit from 220, from 215 to 2, like he was in that range kind of for the average. I'm looking at that and I'm saying I'm gonna give 300 for a guy that's, he's gonna give me 50 home runs probably, but the average is still gonna be low, and his strikeouts are gonna keep going up because when you're only hitting home runs, your strikeouts tend to go up as well. And I'm not willing to invest in that in the 300 mark if that's what's going to happen. I'll give you your 200, 260, 280. That's as far as I'm going. And I think for Alonso, and that's sake, because Alonso's very aware of his statistics. He's always talking about it. He's always aware of his numbers. You see him frustrated whenever he's in a slump. I'm sure he can understand that as well, that they're still trying to give him a good bag. They're just not trying to go to that length
yeah,
of an Aaron Judge or
a fair
whatever.
deal.
You see what? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree with you though. The last two things, and I'll ask you a fan question about the Devils because I think it's worth asking. Um, your expectations on Ronnie Mauricio, and what do you think he provides for next season if he is not traded? Because I have this theory where ever since they picked him up, he's been a draft bait since he's been a fucking Met in the minors and even now. So if they don't officially put him to, for a trade bait, and he's up here for opening day and on the opening day roster, what do you think how he's gonna fit and how he can be long term for the Mets based on what you saw last year?
Um, I think it all ties into what they're going to do with Mark Vientos and Brett
Okay.
Beatty. Like, are the Mets going to commit to one of these kids to be playing third base? Like,
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
they going to bring in a third
Yeah.
baseman? Like, is Beatty
Uh-huh.
going to be the third baseman? Because I saw Ronnie Mauricio play third base, and I thought he
Ooh,
did pretty decently. He played
fine.
a decent
Yeah.
second base. I
Mhm.
think, I don't know. I feel like I have more faith in his bat right now than I do in Brett Beatty's bat. I don't know
I
what
agree.
happened to Brett Beatty,
Yeah. Hmm.
because he killed it in the minor leagues, and then he came up here and he was awful.
He stunk. Yeah.
So they need to decide what they're going to do in terms of, you know, who's going to be playing third base. And like, are they going to go out and get an outfielder and put McNeil back at second? Like, there are so many factors with other parts of the team when it comes to these kids because, if McNeil comes to play second, they get an outfielder and Beatty's playing third. Okay, where's Mauricio going to play? Like, you're not going to just have him DH. Like, I mean, you could, but I doubt that they're going to do that because for some reason I feel like Daniel Vogelback's still going to be here. I hope not, but
Yeah,
I have a feeling he's
yeah, I don't
still
want
going to
him
be
either.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they need to decide what they're going to do with the rest of the team, and I'm pretty sure
Mhm.
that's what David Stearns has been doing over the last month, looking at different strategies. If I have this guy playing here, what am I going to do with this guy? So all that's probably going to come into play, and at some point, one of these kids, maybe even some of the kids that are already in the minor leagues,
Mhm.
you're going to have to start thinking about, can I trade for a starting pitcher? Like, am I going to trade for a top line starting pitcher with these
Mhm.
kids? Because
Mhm.
that's a possibility to me.
Yeah.
That I think that's the biggest possibility of them moving out, is that they're going to bring in a top line starting pitcher with one or two of these kids. They got a couple of good, Blade Tidwell and Dom
Yeah. Yeah.
Hamill. Those kids are going to get, the Calvin Zieglers of the world. Those kids are going
Vasil.
to eventually get an opportunity
Mhm.
to pitch, whether it's here or whether they are
Somewhere else.
traded for a top line starting pitcher. So the Ronnie Mauricio right now, he really has no position, right? Like, I mean, he did play second base, and I thought he did decently there with Francisco Lindor. And if you're gonna stick him at second base, like, Francisco Lindor is the perfect person to teach him and get him through for that. So he's got the length because he's a super tall kid. So they need to decide: do they want him to play second? Do they want to play him at third? I don't know if he's going to be playing the outfield because we didn't see that at all. Right? Like, I don't think he played at all in the outfield this
No, I don't
season.
think he did, but that was one of the rumors that they were gonna move him to left field
I
to see
would
how
keep
he.
McNeil out there. If you're telling
Yeah.
me that he's going to play second, then
Yeah.
keep McNeil out there because I think McNeil plays a really good outfield.
Yeah, I agree. He showed me a lot of promise. And shout out to my guy David Camacho. He was one of the guys
Oh yeah,
while everybody else was telling
every
him that
space, every
everybody was
space.
telling him that it wasn't gonna happen, that he wasn't gonna come up. My man's was on a tour telling
Ronnie Mauricio
everybody that
fan
he
club.
knew that
That
Mauricio was coming up.
he was
And I'm
driving
gonna
that
clip
tour
this. I'm
bus.
gonna send it to him so he could see a shout out because he's like, I want my credit. And
Yeah,
and
he was
and
driving that tour bus. He was honking the horn.
listen, I was there. I was with them too. I said, listen, we're not doing nothing. Give him the opportunity now. See what he can do. He's proved everybody wrong, and I'm a fan. I'm a fan. I've been a fan. I just don't like how they were always putting him in trade rumors and they never traded him. I kind of felt bad for the kid, especially because when they brought Lindor, if you're in his position and you're like, all right, this team seems to keep me here. I think I could be an everyday starter for them as at shortstop when they bring me up, and then they bring Lindor. In his position, you got to kind of feel like he was a little bit like upset. But again, I'm a fan of. I've been a fan of Lindor since they drafted him. So the
Yeah.
fact that he was here, I was always one of those guys like, man, I wish the Mets had Lindor, and then they have him here. So I would take Lindor in that
Look at
any.
how many people they traded for that are shortstops.
Yeah,
Jet
yeah,
Williams is a
yeah.
shortstop. So he's
Mm-hmm.
going to have to figure out another position as well. I think the problem for me that came with Ronnie Mauricio is after they got rid of everybody and cleaned house,
Mm-hmm.
instead of bringing him up since he was so hot and all that stuff, they brought up Rafael Ortega and Jonathan Ruiz. Like, what are we
Yeah,
doing?
that pissed me off. Oh, that pissed me off when they did that. I didn't even want to watch the game. I didn't even want to report on it because of how I'm like, yo, what are we doing here? And
Yeah.
they didn't even prove to work out. That's the worst part about it too. Is like you call these kids up and they're not even worth a spot here. Like that's what pissed me off. But I think Ronnie's definitely gonna, if he's in the opening day roster and they don't trade him. I think he's gonna be one of those guys that's gonna be the key guy that everybody talks about, but not really putting him on the top. Um, Last two, your expectations for the Mets next year.
I need to see a more complete roster. Like,
Okay.
it's so hard to tell right now, right? Because
Mhm.
we were at such a high at this point last year, right? I mean,
Yep.
obviously we were upset because they lost, but we never thought that it was going to be as bad as it was last year. We thought, you know
Mhm.
what, they'll make another run, at least get into the postseason at the very least, and we'll see what happens there. Because as we've seen with the teams that are in the World Series, anything is possible. So
Yep.
I just don't know right now because David Stearns has been here for a month. We don't have a general manager. We don't have a manager. and the roster is very incomplete with a very incomplete, starting rotation and bullpen. Most of the roster is the lineup, and that needs improvement as well. So
Hmm.
we need to see first how they structure and construct this lineup and this entire team for me to really kind of assess. We're gonna have to hop back on this again, let's say, I
Of
don't know,
course.
January or February, and then be
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
just get this team to a point where they can be a postseason team. Like get
Yeah.
us to the postseason. That's what I
Yep.
really want.
That's
I don't want this season to be just us, you know, watching these kids grow up. Like
mhm.
we've seen so much of that throughout the years. Like I want to get back into the postseason, you know.
Yep.
So I hope that's something that they're aiming for, and that's something that they can attain. Because didn't the Rangers lose 100 games last year?
And look where they are now.
Yeah,
Look at the
get us into the
Diamondbacks.
postseason.
Look at the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks, if I'm not mistaken, won 100. I lost 100 last year as well, and they completely shocked everybody.
Yep.
So they're there now, and they could possibly win it depending on how this series turns out. Last question, and obviously, like I said, I gotta ask you a Devils question. Shout out to my guy Brandon. Because I know he's another Devils fan and he's been trying to get me to switch over. um, but with them being so young, and they've been the talk of the team for the past 2 years now, or the past 2 seasons, I should say. What is your expectations for this season? I know it's obviously playoffs, but what do you expect them to do this season as far as playoffs and next year to keep it going? Because when you have a team so young like that, that is on the cusp of possibly win, you guys have the team to win a Stanley Cup. I'll just put it out there. You know what I mean? I'm a Rangers fan, but I'm gonna be straight up with you guys. You guys have a young core to win you guys a Stanley Cup. So what are your expectations for this team now and moving forward? Because it's all about the future as well with your team being so young.
Well, the future is definitely now for this Devils team.
Hmm.
They got, Jack Hughes, which is probably going to be one of the top 5 players in all of NHL, if
Hmm.
he's not already. He's got 18 points in 8 games
Kid
this
is killing
season.
it. Yeah.
He's one of the best young players out there right now.
Hmm.
Their captain Nico Hischier, who's kind of hurt right now, but he's a really good player. They got his Jack Hughes' brother, Luke Hughes.
Luke, Brandon was
So
telling me. Yeah.
yeah, so the team is I don't want to say it's a youth movement, but they're in the right direction. I think that they are a playoff team again this season. But the playoffs are a lot different in hockey than they are in baseball. There's more rounds. There's 7-game series every series. So it's a lot different. Like the Devils could be good this year, and then they could lose to the Rangers in this
Yeah.
postseason. Like
Yeah.
it could go back and forth. No one thought that the Rangers, who were in the conference finals the year before,
Hmm.
that they were going to lose to the Devils this season,
Yeah. I
and
didn't
they
think
had
so
the
either.
best goaltender in
Yeah.
hockey in
Yeah.
Shesterkin.
Mhm.
So I do you gotta sometimes temper expectations because the playoffs are unpredictable. But they're a young team, they're a fast team. They need to improve on defense because there was a lot of changes from last year. They lost Damon Severson. He went to Columbus. They lost, I think it was Ryan Graves. I think he went to Pittsburgh. And those guys were kind of, Damon Severson has been a part of this team for, close to a decade.
Mhm.
And, he was an important part of the defense. So, losing him, and now you're replacing him with Luke Hughes, who's has the opportunity to be a really great defenseman, but this is his first season. I mean, he only got into 2 games last season and a couple of games in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So he's not a fully seasoned, hockey player just yet in the NHL. So there's going to be a lot of growing that this defense has to do. The offense is completely firing on all cylinders. They have the best power play right now, which, I've been watching the Devils for a little over a decade, and their power play was one of the worst that I can remember. And these guys are like getting close to how great the Edmonton Oilers are with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. So, I'm fully in on the offense. You're going to get a lot of high scoring games right now because the
Oh,
defense
trust
is
me.
still learning. The
Yeah.
offense is scoring. And the only concern is the goalies. right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Vitek Vanacek had a good season last year, and it did not translate into the postseason. He fell apart. That we had to go to Akira Schmid, who I don't know if he's 100% ready to take over just yet. So, yeah, and with the defense not playing 100, and them
Yeah.
giving up
Yeah.
goals, you're going to have a lot of high scoring games. But somehow the Devils have figured out, how to come back, and that can only go so far because that doesn't work in the playoffs every year. You're going to
No.
face the best of the best. So
Yep.
we'll see where the Devils go, but if they can somehow get an elite goaltender. Unfortunately, one of them is off the boards now. Connor Hellebuck resigned with the Winnipeg Jets,
Mhm.
and that's someone that a lot of Devils fans wanted. So we'll see who becomes available. There's some talks about John Gibson in Anaheim. I'm kind of looking at Jacob Markstrom in Calgary right now because
Okay.
Calgary's not good. But we'll see who becomes available. I think that we're going to get a good season from not only the Devils, but the Rangers, who just went on a 5-0 road trip. We're talking about
Yeah. 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 I was. I,
they,
I was. I was.
they
I was
got
pretty
10
proud.
points in a
Yeah.
week
Yeah. Yeah.
of being on the road trip. So they're going to be good. And the Islanders have one of the best goalies in Ilya Sorokin. So this tri-state area of hockey, I mean, the Islanders are a rough team to watch because they don't score as much, but
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
have the best goalie. They have a really good defense, and they're going to make sure that they are in it in the postseason as well. So a lot of good things to look forward to when it comes to New York sports, especially in hockey.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, you've noticed I've just started covering hockey this year, and I've had so much fun with it. I'm still learning, still learning the rules and still
I'm still
learning.
learning, so
Yeah,
you got nothing to worry about.
I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a lot, but it's been fun. I mean, Brandon talks about it all the time. Brandon keeps telling me, "Yo, watch this play, watch that play." So he's been keeping me in the loop.
Yeah,
But
me
it's
and
it's
Brandon
it's been
message
fun
each other during the games a
in the
lot.
game.
Yeah,
But he's been trying to get me to go out to Devils game. So he was like, listen, when the Rangers come, you gotta go because you don't want to be paying that MSG price. You rather pay cheaper in the
yeah.
potential. So, um,
I'll be there. I think it's November 18th. I think is the Rangers
okay,
Devils game. I'll be at that game, and the only other game I know so far that I'll be at is the Stadium Series at MetLife
ah,
when they
okay,
take on the Flyers.
you're going to a good one. That's in MetLife. So I'm sure them ticket prices were not were not
No,
fun.
no, no, they definitely weren't. I mean, just ticket prices in general are not
Yeah,
fun
yeah, yeah.
anymore, right?
No,
Like you
no.
concerts, you'll be spent like you could go on a vacation for the price you'll pay to sit all the way up top for
Yeah.
like a Taylor Swift concert or something.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that comes to my head.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad I got my season ticket for the Mets. At least it's a reasonable price compared to what I have to fucking pay to see the Giants or the Knicks.
Yeah,
And I've never been to a hockey game, so that's been on my goal this year to watch the Rangers play. But with that being said, I'm gonna end it here. Appreciate you, Anthony, once again for taking the
absolutely,
time to
man.
come and join me. Hopefully we get to do this again. If you guys haven't so far, please check out his podcast at Subway To Shea. His recent episode dropped on October 3rd. He's talking about David Stearns and the situation with Buck and recapping on the Mets season last year. So please go check that out. Please go follow my guy all over Instagram and Twitter, and just keep in the loop for all his content, man. He posts dope
Absolutely, man.
content. He's one of the top Mets content creators out here. So
I
just
just started doing
support
all
my
these
guy.
shorts too as well. Like
Yo,
I posted that short yesterday because I really took a month off of the
okay,
podcast. Like
yeah.
if you are doing your podcast on all these sports teams and like you just feel like you need some time, never hesitate because
Oh,
I feel
I haven't
so
posted my recent
energized.
episode since August
Yeah.
1st. I
This
gotta get
is
back into it.
this is the first podcast I'm doing I I think in a month, really. And
Okay.
like I feel so energized and like I've missed it so much that I'm
Yeah,
ready now
yeah,
to get
yeah.
back on the grind. So
Same,
like I've been
same.
doing little shorts here. I have the interview with Edgardo Alfonso that I kind of been cutting up and putting on YouTube.
Nice,
I
nice.
did an interview with Ed Kranepool for his book. So I'll
Okay.
probably cut some clips out of that. The like we had that issue
Yeah, yeah,
before.
yeah.
I had a little issue trying to connect with him, so
Okay.
I can't turn it into a full podcast, but I'll definitely get some clips out there on YouTube.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I'm trying to work. It's funny that you had brought up that CP the artist thing, because I'm trying to get an interview with him. I think he's on the hot seat right now with a lot of stuff, and not negatively. I'm talking about positive. Like everything he's done, he's been talked about a lot. So I think that'd be a good look. So I'm trying to get one of that. Trying to work my way out here. But as you know, it's a work in progress for us as content creators.
It's
But
definitely a grind, but never be afraid to reach out or ask,
yeah,
because I mean the worst thing someone can say is no.
yeah,
But on the positive, you did your part, and
yeah.
yeah, like I said, never be afraid to ask, and whenever you need me, just hit me up.
Yeah, like I said, I appreciate you, bro, taking the time, and I know you're busy. And like I said, everybody tune into to Anthony, man. He's posting a lot of good stuff on their Subway to Shea. And I'm just excited for baseball to come back already. Just having this conversation, I'm like, yo, I
Me
can't
too.
wait for spring training to start and winter meetings to get here. So I can't wait. But appreciate you, my guy, man. Appreciate you taking the time. This is David from Top Bunk Sports, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode, man. Peace.